What type of job seems appealing, but ends up being quite disappointing? Veterinarian. Expectation. Oh, lots of animals. Reality, death. So much death. Working at a flower shop is just like any other retail position, but everyone assumes it's more enjoyable than it really is. Assisting families in selecting flowers for funerals is definitely not the fun part either. A friend of mine is a forensic scientist, and whenever he's on dating apps, it's the only thing people want to talk about. His work is actually pretty technical and involves a lot of routine tasks. After 4 years in the military, my biggest complaint was the lack of sleep and the irregular schedule. First job after that was a security guard. I couldn't believe how lucky I was getting paid to stand there and do nothing. Until that job, I had not realized how much I would hate being bored. I'd say most jobs end up being disappointing in a never-meet-your-heroes kind of way. I'd rather know which job seemed unappealing but turned out to be surprisingly satisfying. Barnes & Noble. Your role has absolutely no connection to books, yet it clearly draws in a lot of book lovers, including me. I work as a scientist. I'm not sure if people generally view that profession as enjoyable, but I believe they expect it to be filled with more eureka moments and a lot less. I have to manually process this data for 600 hours before I can start analyzing it. A friend of mine is a marine biologist, and they spent the past week measuring thawed fish heads. Social services. You're made to think you're going to change the world, but you're expected to overwork for passion without being properly compensated. Ranching/farm work. I cringe every time I see someone say they want to live on a farm or ranch. It's hard, brutal work. Most people that say will not last. Edit. Been thinking about doing an AMA or an /off me chest post about this for a long time. Maybe this weekend. A travel blogger job seems appealing with its promise of adventure and free trips, but it often turns out disappointing due to constant deadlines, unstable income, and the pressure to always perform for social media. Video game developer. Nursing. Became a nurse to help people and do cool medical shit. And I did do that. I also got yelled at by patients and other staff. Spit on, hit, choked, demeaned, worked 16+ hours sometimes, and frequently missed important family events while working on weekends. When you work a shitty retail or food service job, being slow can seem appealing, but over time it erodes your soul. Time slows down to a crawl, and over long enough periods of time the culture will shift to where everyone treats the job as waiting out the clock, and all forms of work are interruptions of your scheduled phone time. It can destroy a culture, and that's before you start talking about losing hours and whatnot. Event planning seems exciting until you're stuck with last-minute changes, unresponsive vendors, and managing everyone's stress. I would think any first responder job. Yeah, it's cool you get to be seen as the heroes of society, but with all the messed up things you have to see, like you're constantly seeing people go through the worst moment of their lives. I would imagine that gets to you. Hospitality. Tourists/travelers can be real at dollar holes. Remote work. Great in theory until you realize it's just you and your cat judging your productivity. I used to work at zoo, which a lot of people think would be really great. My job, however, was to circumcise the elephants. The pay wasn't great, but the tips were huge. Veterinary services. Thought I'd hang out with fun animals all day. Instead, all of them were sick, hurting in pain, neglected, and I got by a lot. Working in film. Don't get me wrong, I love it, but after 5 years, I can already tell my body will not be able to keep up with it till retirement. While investigative journalism can provide thrills and a sense of making a great contribution to society, it often comes with challenges such as high pressure, danger, and sometimes a lack of recognition or protection from the press and the public. Sales specialist at a motorcycle dealership. People always tell me I have their dream job. Like, no, I really don't. It's still sales, and it's a hard and brutal job with long hours and sometimes little pay when you don't sell, especially when you can't control interest rates. Video game developer. Video games are great. Creating them is hell, with long work hours and minimum pay. All of them. Chef. Airline crew, including pilots. One where you do nothing all day. It gets boring no matter how you choose to entertain yourself. Musician in an orchestra. Don't get me wrong, I love my job, but it is exhausting sometimes and lacks a lot of the glamour I imagined. Odd hours, days, traveling, mad conductors, working in a bakery. I often see graphic design touted as an escape route for people who find themselves wanting to change career. I honestly think it's pretty irresponsible of the people who run these courses promising that, as it's a really difficult industry to get into. And even if you can get into it, it's then really hard to get the fun, creative work you were picturing when you signed up. I'm sure a lot of people end up disappointed. Veterinary technician, a lot of puppies, kittens, but also a lot of sickness, suffering, and death and compassion fatigue. Video game testers, everyone dreamed of being one, but I think going through bugs as your job isn't that nice. An experienced pilot talked me out of becoming a pilot, but I'm in my late 30s and not married or have kids, and I still want to be a pilot. Gynecologist. Porta potty transport and maintenance. People romanticize the hell out of it, but it's really not that great. Game development. The trades. You can make good money, as long as you're willing to work your life away and destroy your body. Game tester. Expectation to play game all day and make money. But reality is running into wall 500 times a day and write a report. Nursing.